Hi, I'm Matthew Morris, and my presentation was based on finding your means of literacy. I had to talk about the development of my literacy throughout my life, and I took a more creative approach in understanding how there's different means of literacy, whether it's through film, through art or music, or even numbers, speech, or writing. The more creative side deals with the, artsy aspect and the creative, and there's the more analytical side. So I basically wanted to understand how you could communicate the development of your literacy through different means, and that was what my paper was based on.
Hi, I'm Jordan. If you've ever watched a crime television show, then you've probably heard of forensic science. But what most people don't realize is forensic science is not actually seen as a real science in the courtroom, while DNA and toxicology evidence are considered real science. Things like blood spatter analysis and fingerprint analysis are not real science, and they're seen as an expert opinion, which the forensic scientist actually writes up in their report, which is used by non-scientists like the lawyers and the judges and the jurors. So it's really important that the readability of these reports is very high for non-scientists. And so this is a big issue in the scientific community of making scientific writing readable for non-scientists. And so I analyzed how the guidelines for writing these scientific reports actually influenced the readability of the report, and found that majority, 61% of the time, the reports actually use suggestive language when describing what to do, which leaves room for interpretation, so the forensic scientist can decide if they want to exclude that guideline or follow it, and it can end up decreasing the readability and cause court cases to make conclusions based off these reports, which they might just not fully understand. And it can lead to a big issue in the criminal justice system, and we want to avoid that by using demanding language, which forces the forensic scientists to follow the guidelines and make their reports as readable as possible.
Hi, my name is Minnie Dixon, and my project was on autism stereotypes in psychiatric genres. My research is about autism because when I was writing my paper, I'm an autistic woman. A lot of people don't know that about me. A lot of, if I don't choose to share it with you, you wouldn't know. And that's apparently true also of psychiatric individuals, because this started out while I was writing my paper. I went to CAPS and I was talking to them about getting diagnosed with officially, and the counselor in training there said to me verbatim "Oh, you don't seem very autistic," and I was like, okay. It was very startling to me and made me question it for a while until now I know yes, I am. And so that affected my paper. I wanted to know how stereotypes of autism and what autism is thought to be affects how these individuals are writing papers and making their genres and treating autistic individuals. And I found that in my research this is not an isolated problem. 4 out of 5 autistic adults have difficulty getting diagnoses, and a lot of that is because they don't know what the symptoms look like. This is especially true of women. Women are especially able to go undetected because of societal pressures. They're able to hide their autism. They're chameleons. We're able to pretend to be neurotypical, everything's fine. And so I wanted to see how this why are they're so able to go undetected, and a lot of that is because people think they're children. It's the stereotype, when people think, oh, autistic person, they think of an 8-year-old boy sitting in a corner playing with a toy train set. And that's not how it appears in everybody.
Hey, my name is Richard Caruso. I did my project on civil engineers and how they mitigate natural disasters and how that's changed from the past to now and how it's going to be done in the future. But the purpose of my research was to basically look at the role of civil engineers and how civil engineering can incorporate natural disasters into the curriculum. In my research, I did an interview with Dr. Mackey, the Department Chair of Civil Engineering at UCF, and I also did a database analysis where I basically looked at research trends over the past about 30 years. And what I found from my research was that the role of civil engineers is a very complex one and a very diverse one. Also a very adaptable one. It changes with time and changes with the specific occurrences of natural disaster. Also, I found that research trends over time have significantly changed, research has significantly increased over the last, say, 6 years. And from my research, I encourage more research into how civil engineering can be incorporated into the curriculum, and how the information in my project can be applied to recent events such as Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma, which caused a lot of damage and cost a lot of lives.
My name is Juliana Hughes, and what I did for this project is I looked at how the tabloids have changed over the past 100 years. So what I did was I focused on 4 major women: Coco Chanel, Marilyn Monroe, and Madonna, and Kim Kardashian. And I looked specifically at the headline, the pictures, and the adjectives you just used to describe the women. And what I basically found was that as time went on, there was more sex appeal, more lies, and it was a lot more disrespectful to the women. And you can see in the photos, like, it gets more scandalous, and you can see that the photos aren't as flattering as it was for Coco Chanel, and they were very, very intrusive on their personal lives. So you can see as time moves on, like, the public has more interest in celebrities, therefore the tabloids are more interested in really finding out those, like, juicy details and stuff like that. But when you get to, like, Kim Kardashian, they less focus on the sex appeal and more on the lies, because she basically puts her entire life on a TV show, so they have to come up with these crazy lies to, like, sell the magazines, basically. And then we can see as time moves on how the tabloids change again. It could be more of crazy lies or more back to sex appeal or whatever's in the public's interest.
Hi, my name is Larry Greenaway, and as far as my project goes, I wanted to see whether or not students were politically engaged on college campuses. So I started off with looking at Florida, and then I wanted to kind of delve into nationwide. So as far as that goes, my surveys kind of were split into 2. So it was asking about 60 students nationwide different questions about, you know, whether or not they were involved, registered to vote, whether or not they know their local senators, representatives, things like that. And then the other portion was more of the interview aspect. I interviewed 5 individual students from colleges around the country. So I asked students from UCF, Georgetown, Boston University to see different ways that students got involved. And I also wanted to explore different topics that might affect whether or not students were engaged. And those 4 topics were media and social media use, location, whether or not location of a university actually affected whether or not the students were more or less involved, and then whether or not being on a college campus affected it as well. And then lastly, major choice. I found that a lot of political science students were more involved as opposed to, you know, other students. But then after that, most students were more or less, it didn't really matter about their actual major. And then I found that a lot of students in the Northeast were more involved than students everywhere else. I think with location, it kind of has to do with, you know, being in Washington, D.C., Georgetown, and then being in Boston, there's a lot of law schools, so there's a lot of history there and things like that, so it actually enables students to be more engaged. But more or less, to conclude, I found that students, if they weren't completely engaged in politics, they were more or less curious about it. So I included that with being engaged. I didn't really find a lot of apathy. I found that once students found out more about an issue, they actually cared more about it. But overall, I found that college students were definitely politically engaged.